Yo, it's Lonzo the Great, and today, guys, today's the day you're gonna see the sickest, funnest, most lit Whirlwind Barbarian Bleed build you've ever seen in your flippin' life, and I mean it. This build is so fun, it's so sweet, and I've done nothing since day one but play the Whirlwind Barbarian build, and you're gonna see why I think this is the funnest build ever. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's the strongest build, because it's not. I'm not gonna say you're gonna clear the highest tiers, it's not, but if you're into speedrunning and messing stuff up, this is the build for you. Check it out, all right? First and foremost, let me shrink the screen down a little bit over here so you can see my badass looking barbarian. Whoops, nope, yeah, there we go. All right, cool. So I've only been playing the Whirlwind Barbarian since day one. I've theory crafted this. I've played nothing since Diablo got released but Whirlwind Bleed Barb. So I've really experimented with a whole bunch of different shit, and I'm telling you right now, this is the most lit build you will ever play. And I'm going to dive deep into it. We got an Excel sheet. I'm going to dive into the numbers. I'm going to dive into the nitty-gritty details, and you guys are going to freaking love it. First and foremost, where do I even start, bro? There's so much to this build. Okay, first I'll tell you a little bit about the build. Just like any other Barbarian build, it's all about uptime and it's all about the bleed damage. And we're going to talk about how important bleed is and how important berserking is. Contrary to belief, a lot of other barbarians who play this class will say, oh, berserker uptime isn't the most important thing. Well, fuck yeah, it is. For this build, it is. You want berserker uptime, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Anyways, let's start from the very top. As a barbarian, the two most important things you really want, obviously there's a lot of important things, but the two most important things really are your critical strike damage and your critical strike chance. And again, we're going to touch on the gear, touch on the aspect, touch on everything. So first and foremost, let's take a look over here in the top left. Let me make this just a little smaller. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so critical strike damage. You really want to be focusing on having high critical strike chance and high critical strike damage. The more you're critting, the better for you. A big reason why you want a lot of crit, actually, is because A, you're going to just fuck shit up. And B, we take this glyph over here of the Wrath. So skills that successfully crit generate 3 fury, as we can see right over there. So you always want to be freaking critting. Always. Not only are you doing more damage, but you're getting more fury, which means you're spinning. You're fucking spinning. And when you're spinning, you're winning. Spin to win. All right, so how are we going to generate crit? You got your 6 emeralds, which give you 12% critical strike each. So I got my base crit here, which is 338%. So if we go back to in-game over here, blah, 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 da-da-da, ba-ba-boom, ba-da-boom. Where's my critical strike? Fucking critical strike damage. 338% critical strike damage, which is pretty good, It was a little higher, but after the patch, it got nerfed a bit. But 338, we work with that. That's fine. I can live off that. That's Paragon board skills, etc. Then you got the Wrath glyph, so it's extra crit towards vulnerable, so that's 43%. And then you have the 6 emerald, which gives you 72% crit because they're 12% critical strike each. So when a unit is vulnerable, between your base and your vuln crit, everything combined, I am looking at 453% critical strike damage. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage. Now, you also want good critical strike chance. You want to be critting. If you're hitting 453% harder when you're critting, you want to make sure you're freaking critting, right? How do we achieve this? This is achieved very easily. You got No Mercy, which is your crit versus slowed talent. So that would be right over here. Skill tree, da 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 da. Where the hell is No Mercy? Here you go. You have a 9% increased critical strike chance against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. And when you have a bleed on an enemy, because we put 1 point into this, hamstring, they're slowed. So you're critting. So we got 9% from that. I have 33% base crit. Actually, it's more. It's 35 because we just checked. And this is 1 day old, and I got a new piece of gear. So it's 35% base crit. This is just from gear, Paragon board, etc. And then we got the Dire of the Whirlwind aspect, which is this one right over here, guys. Very important. I know you know what, but I'll reiterate it. This is freaking great. It channels up to 36%. So for every second you're spinning, it channels up. So I maxed it out at 36%. You get a better aspect that even brings it higher. But in total, when all of these are combined, when you're spinning and they're bleeding, and you got your base, which is it's very likely, happens all the time, you're maxing out at 80% crit, which is very good. You could bring that up to 100 with a few little better aspects and stuff like that, but 80%, man, I can live with that. If I'm spinning, I'm critting 80% of the time, and when you're critting, you're hitting 453% increased damage on vulnerable targets. and you're generating more of that rage like we just discussed because of where is it? Because of this aspect, I mean, this glyph right over here, dude, you're freaking unstoppable, Barb. You're unstoppable. Now, we're going to talk about the bleeding damage bonus, all right? So, we have Berserker of the Ripping. Because you're playing Sword, a Whirlwind Barbarian, you're always going to be bleeding. It's a bleed build. I can't emphasize that more. It's so important to make these guys bleed. So, Berserker of the Ripping aspect. Apply base bleed while zerking. What is this? This is an aspect. Where do I have this aspect placed? We have this aspect placed. Where the heck did I place this aspect? I think on my weapon. Should be right here. Yeah. Berserking. Whenever you deal direct damage while berserking, inflict 29% of the base damage dealt as bleeding damage. So when you're berserking, you are dealing additional bleed damage. So that's why you always want to be berserking. Your berserking uptime is very important because you're dealing more damage with your bleeds, and this is a bleed build. So that's, I speak to a bunch of other barbarians are like, oh, berserker uptime isn't that important. Hell yeah, it is. If you're freaking in the bleed build, if you're in the same business as I'm in, you want to be berserking as much as possible. And I'm going to teach you how to keep that berserking uptime very high, very consistent. But let's keep on talking about the bleed damage bonus applications, if you will. Then you got disembowel glyph. This is such an important glyph, man. This is probably one of my favorite glyphs, honestly. A lot of people don't think so. I do. People understand if its importance. All good barbarians are running it, but it's my favorite. And some guys, it's just not their favorite, but it's my favorite. So you're inflicting 61.8% physical damage over time, plus 61.8% physical damage over time. Sorry, not inflicting, plus. So that's a huge addition. That's why you kind of want to put this, you want to get this stock, you want to get this glyph, and you want to put it in on this board over here. What is this board called again? Weapon Master. So the reason, take a screenshot of this if you're watching this video. Take a screenshot right now. I'm going to save you a lot of headaches. Take a screenshot right now if you're watching this video. Over here, what I've done is I put a little bit of a little sheet together that shows you each board and the amount of strength, dexterity, and willpower in each board, because some glyphs are activated by strength, some are activated by dexterity, some are activated by willpower. So if some need strength, for example, you want to put it in Blood Rage because there's a lot of strength on this board around the glyph and not as much dexterity and not as much willpower. So that's the reason why I put specific glyphs under specific boards. And I'm going to, I guess I'll show you that as well. All right, cool. So we're gaining plus 61.8% physical damage over time, and this also reduces the cooldown of our non-ultimate, of our shouts. But we're going to get into the shout business later. But just know, this is very important glyph. Very important. We're getting 60. Jeez, man, my shit just ain't updated because I just redid a couple things and it's not easy updating this Excel sheet. But anyway, 61%. I have 57% here. Let's just quickly do 61%. Cool. So you got 23% from berserking aspect, 60, and this is additional damage. 61% from the disembowel glyph, 20% from sword specialization. And we're running a sword. We're running sword for this build, man. You bet your freaking ass we are, because swords are just the way to go, honestly, if you're running this build. Two-handed swords. Let's read this together, guys. 20% of your direct damage you deal inflicted as bleeding damage over 5 seconds. You deal 30% increased bleeding damage for 5 seconds after killing an enemy. So you kill an enemy, you're doing more damage. When you're using the sword, you're doing more damage. It's just huge. Then you got Furious Whirlwind, which is a talent, which is giving us 40% increased bleeding. And that is right over here. If we go to our talent tree and we go here, we go da-da-da-da-da-da. That's Furious Whirlwind. We got another 40% on top of that. Man, you could probably start connecting the pieces to the puzzle and start seeing what I'm getting at. This is a lot of bleeding damage. Then you got Cut to the Bone, which is 18% versus vulnerable damage. 18% plus 18% bleeding damage versus vulnerable units. So like, just look at all this bleeding damage. You're 18%, 40, 20, 61, 23, a total of 100 plus 130 plus 139% bleeding damage. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's a lot of damage. I can't emphasize it more. This is a bleed build. So this is so fun because when you're running through mobs and you're ripping through them, they're bleeding. And my gosh, man, you are critting. And you are making them all bleed. And you are generating so much fury. And you could just like run through them and they're bleeding. And you run away and you come back and they're all dead. That's why you just spin and you speed rush tier 60s like it's your day job. You get paid to speed rush tier 60s because of all your bleeding damage. You literally just run through them once and you look back and they're alive and they're chasing you and you keep running and you look back again and they're dead Because that bleeding damage ticks, bro. It freaking ticks. It ticks on bosses for 100k. It ticks on mobs for 20k. If you get them down to like 30 to 40% health, let the freaking bleeding take care of them. That's 139 additional bleeding damage on top of all this other shit. So, buddy, you got your crit, you got your crit chance, you got your crit damage, you got your bleeding damage. You're just ripping it, man. You're ripping it. Now, as we all know, the most important thing about Fury Barbarian is your CDR uptime. You need CDR uptime, which is not your CDR, your Fury, your shout uptime. So cooldown duration, that's what CDR stands for. So you need your what do I have Fury uptime? It's shout uptime. So you need shout uptime. So if you have a good shout uptime, but if you're just shouting, Barbarians are all about shouts. Because look at this. Oh, I'm in the city, but let me just step outside. Let me step outside for you. The most important thing, guys, about Barbarians is shouts. So the more you're shouting, the more rage you're generating, the more powerful you are, the faster you're moving, you're unstoppable. Your guy's just on fire. He's on fire. So you want to make sure you have your shouts up as much as possible. I know you know this, but I'll just say it again. And for anybody who's new to playing Barbarian, and you're going to play Barbarian in the seasons and whatnot, shout up time is super, super, super crazy important. Because look, you do 1, 2, 3, 4. You just freaking like spin through them, man, and your guy just slaps. He slaps. And this is what I mean about the bleeding damage. Let me give you an example. Like, look, they all just die. See these two here in the back? I'm not even hitting them. It just ticks away, and everybody just dies. They all just end up dying. Like, it's so sick. And when you're in a dungeon, like it's madness. It's absolute madness. Okay, let's go back to the town. And look, as I shout, look at my rage. Just pay attention to my rage. My rage just it fully generates my rage. Like, it's insane rage generation. So that's why you always want to shout. And we're going to talk about like the importance of that. Look, I just hit that guy for like, it's crazy damage, guys. This build slaps, and you always want your shout up time to be high. How do we get high uptime on your shouts? You got Glyph of the Marshal. Glyph of the Marshal, very, very important glyph, very important glyph, very important glyph. Can't emphasize enough. Where do you place Glyph of the Marshal? I like to place it over here and on the Decimator board, Glyph of the Marshal. Let's read it together. You're getting more invuln damage. You're getting damage reduction from vulnerable units. We know this. But the key is after casting a shout skill, the active cooldown of every other shout skill is reduced by 1.2 seconds. So I'm casting shout here. Look, now look at that. It says 22. It goes down to 19. Goes down to 17. Goes down. Oh, no, it doesn't work against ultimate. But you see what I mean. Every time you cast a shout, it ticks it down by 1 second. So that's super, super important. Then we got the Glyph of Disembowel, which we were talking about earlier. This is why this is such a great glyph for this build, because it's giving us, not only does this glyph here give us, not only does it give us plus physical damage over time, or bleeding damage, but it also, killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your non-ultimate abilities by 1 second. So if you're in a group, guys, if you're in a group of, let me expand this shit. This is an important, oh my gosh, this is an important point. So I gotta expand this. I gotta expand this when it comes to important things. If you're in a group of 10 people, not 10 people, if you're in a dungeon and there are 10 mobs around you, if you are in a scenario where there just happens to be 10 mobs around you, which happens all the time in Diablo. Now let's say there's 15 mobs around you, whatever it may be. You have a 10% chance of reducing the cooldown of your non-ultimate abilities by 1.3 seconds, as I can see over here on this little Excel sheet right there, 1.3 seconds. Every time you kill a bleeding enemy. But this 10% really, to me, sometimes feels like it's 20% because it always hits. And everyone's bleeding. Like, when you're running through dungeons, you got like 20 people behind, 20 mobs behind you bleeding. So this is just reducing your cooldowns of your non-ultimate abilities by an additional 1.3 seconds every time you kill someone. So if you're around 10 people, it's going to proc 1, so that's an additional 1.3%. I'm calculating this on the low end, okay? So I got 1.2 from Glyph of Marshal, then we got 1.3 from Glyph of Disembowel. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, there are 10 mobs around you. It's not even hypothetical because it happens all the time. That's another 1.3 second reduction, right? Then you got Chieftain's Aspect. Boy, this one is crazy, all right? Chieftain's Aspect, CD reductions per nearby enemy applied. Okay, let's get in the game and show you it. You want to see it? Let's look at it. Oh man, this one is so freaking good, bro. The Chieftain Aspect, my bird's going a little crazy. Let me take some protein. Because I'm a barbarian. I'm a barbarian in the game. I'm a barbarian in real life. I feel like one anyway. And World of Warcraft, I played an Orc Warrior, so I was kind of a barbarian there. I'm a barbarian, dude. That's what I do. I barb it up. What was I just talking about? I was talking about. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you the chieftains. Yeah, whenever you cast a shout skill, its cooldown is reduced by 1.3 seconds per nearby enemy. Obviously, you can get a better aspect than this. Is the one I've been found. So let's say there are 10 nearby enemies, right? And you cast your shout. That's 10. That's a 10-second cooldown reduction on all of your shout skills. See what I'm getting at, guys? How crazy is that? So let's just say I put 3 seconds here, but dude, let's say we're around 10 enemies because that's what we're basing everything off. So that's 10 seconds. It's actually a little bit more than that because it's like 10.3. I don't know. Let's just do like 12. Let's just say 12. All right. It's not letting me freaking click on it, man. Let's say 12 seconds. So you got 1.2 seconds from Glyph of Martial, 1.3 seconds from Disembowel, 12 seconds from Chieftain's Aspect. Then you got Harrogat, which is your chest piece right over here. The unique on this is up to a 30% chance to reduce the cooldown of your non-ultimate skills by 1.5 seconds when you inflict bleeding damage on elites. Dude, this is crazy because there's always elites. Always. And it's every time you inflict bleeding damage. So this, like, when your bleed goes on, it ticks. It's per tick. So if it's ticking, it's ticking, it's ticking. You have a 30% chance per tick. So I put 1.5 seconds here. But dude, trust me, it's way more than that. Let's say there's 2 elites in a pack of 10 people, which happens, again, all the time. And I keep saying people. When I say people, I mean monsters. I mean mobs. I mean the enemies. I put 1.5 seconds. But dude, it's really honestly like 3 seconds on the low end because it keeps ticking. It's higher than that. Okay? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Excel could do this for me, but sometimes I like to do my math out loud. So you got 18, pretty much 18-second cooldown reduction if you're in a pack, if you're in a scenario where you got 10 mobs around you, which is crazy. Which is crazy if you think about it, because your shout has a 22% cooldown on it, but it's active for like 3 to 4 seconds. All nearby enemies for 3.5 seconds. There we go. 4 seconds, pretty much, right? Now, 22 and it's active for 4 seconds, right? And its cooldown is 22 seconds minus 18 seconds. Now you see what I'm getting at? You could get to a point where your shouts are constantly active. And when you're speed clearing tier 60s, which is the intended purpose of a Whirlwind Barbarian of this bleed build, your shouts are just always up because you always have packs of enemies around you. And I'm basing this considering there's 10 enemies around you. But a lot of times it's more than that. Like sometimes you get in groups and there's, honestly, it feels like there's like 15, 20, I swear. And even especially like when you're doing those dungeons with spiders and they hatch, like each spider hatches 10. Like those all count as units, I'm pretty damn sure. So 18 seconds on the low end. And on the high end, this could go like beyond, well beyond 18 seconds. It could be more, but you don't need it more because your shouts are already active for 4 seconds. So as long as you hit this range, you're constantly shouting. It's so good. So that's why if you're running Whirlwind Barb, get Glyph of the Martial, get Disembowel, get Chieftain's Aspect, get Harrogat, which is the unique chest. A lot of you guys probably know this, but it's just nice to show you this Excel sheet because now you kind of like really see the numbers coming together and it really gives you good structure and understanding. And for anybody who's playing like Barb for the first time, this is really, really valuable information. Like these are the glyphs you want to go for if you're doing Whirlwind Barbarian. Okay. Now let's Wrath Glyphs gives you Fury Uptime. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about Fury generation. Okay. Aspect of the Echoing Fury, shouts generate rage while active. So on your 2 rings, on the first one you want Chieftain, which is the one we just talked about, reduces the cooldown of your abilities for your shouts for every nearby enemy. Then you want a Band of the Echoing. The reason this is so powerful is because your shouts, while they're up, generate 4 fury per second. So once you get these 2 aspects on your ring is really when the Whirlwind Barbarian starts coming to life. So now look at this. I'm going to use all 4 of my shouts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at my rage. It's ticking, it's ticking, it's ticking because it's 4 rage per shout. So when your shouts are up, you're generating so much rage. Your resource gen is up. And with Rallying Cry, you're unstoppable. You're moving faster. With Warcry, you're gaining Berserker, you're gaining movement speed, attack power, etc., etc. And if there are enemies around you, you're doing more damage. With Challenging Shout, again, you're generating more rage, you're more tanky, and obviously with Berserker, we don't want to even speak about this. This just turns the Barbarian into his ultimate form. Can we just take a moment and just acknowledge how sick this guy looks? Like, look at my mount. What a beautiful, beautiful barbarian. Anyhow, so I'm glad we went over that. So Fury generation is huge. Aspect of the Echoing is massive. You want to get that on your ring. Then we got the Wrath Glyph, which we talked about. Core crits generate rage. So, come in here. Wrath. My bad, yo. Every time you critically hit, you're generating rage. And our crit chance, we went over that, is pretty good. Pretty high. Paragon board Fury generation points. You're gonna pick some of this up in Warbringer. Warbringer is really good. So just kind of explore that board. I won't get too detailed into that. That's a little bit kind of like self-explanatory. Talent tree. You got enhanced whirlwind. Each time you deal damage to an enemy, you're generating fury, and times 4% versus elites. So let's look at your abilities. Skill tree. Look at this. Whirlwind. Right? 1 point of fury while whirlwind deals damage to an enemy, and 4 against elites. So if you're in a pack and you got your shouts up and with the aspects and stuff we just discussed, and then you're hitting a bunch of shit with whirlwind, you're never going to be raid starved, buddy. You're never going to be raid starved. Tactical rallying cry, tactical challenging shout, prolific fury bonus increase while you're zerking, and then the talent prime wrath of the zerker. Extra fury gen while zerking. Again, diving here. So this is giving you extra fury prime wrath of the zerker. So obviously, if you're gonna choose this, you're gonna grab that as well, or fury. And I personally grabbed this prolific fury. You could get rid of it. I have gotten rid of it because everything else, when you reach a certain point where everything kind of comes together, you don't really need this as much. I choose to keep it because I'm always berserking and I'm always generating so much fury. So yeah, these things are just very important, guys. Very, very important. Fury generation. If you get your rings and you get these aspects and you're getting these talents and whatnot, your fury generation is going to be remarkable. Remarkable. Especially with your shout uptime, because every time a shout is active, you're generating 4 fury per second. So that's why you want to get your cooldown duration on your shouts down. You want to keep your shouts up. You're generating so much fury. Super, super important. And a big part of this is echo aspect of the echoing cry, which you put on your ring. It's so, so strong. Now, bleed damage reduction. So everything is bleeding. You're hitting harder. Like you're fucking enemies up when they're bleeding, right? You're hitting harder against them. You're doing more damage against them, especially if you're going into this blood rage board. Like look over here. Additional damage to enemies, 8%. Yeah, so you're doing 8%. You're getting damage reduction from bleeding enemies, and over here you're getting 20% damage to bleeding enemies, and over here you're doing plus 20% damage to bleeding enemies and all this stuff. So if you have to get this board, the blood rage board, because a lot of these little nodes and whatnot, they just boost your bleeding damage. And when enemies are bleeding, it makes you tankier. You're taking less damage from them too because of this board. So it's super, super important, extremely important board to go into. And then you got your grit node in the Paragon. Yeah, the one we just discussed that. Bleed damage reduction, obviously you get that from the Harrigat chest piece as well, right over here. 11% damage reduction for bleeding enemies. Now you see why this build is so bloody and so dependent on bleeding? Because when someone's bleeding, you're hitting them harder, you're taking less damage from them, it makes you super tanky. And then we got this aspect here, guys. Look at this aspect, right? The blood primal one. Gain 4% damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy up to 20%. You're going to have a shit ton of bleeding enemies, okay? So everyone's going to be bleeding around you. And I'm pretty sure there's better versions of this aspect as well. This is just the one I was able to find. That's a lot of like damage reduction. That's why you want everything to be bleeding, which naturally it will. Now, this, in addition to the Paragon board, the things we just discussed, makes you super tanky because everyone's always bleeding around you and you're just tankier. Because you're so much damage reduction. It's so freaking good. Yeah, so we discussed these. Perfect. Berserker uptime. So now, the importance of having Berserker uptime, okay, is because when you have your Berserker, let's read this together, guys. Rather, the Berserker is active. Every 50 fury you spend increases Berserker damage by additional 25%. And you're always spinning, and you're always doing more damage, and you're always spending fury. So that 25% stacks on it. It does so much damage. Sometimes when I use this, man, you start hitting, I'm not even exaggerating, and I'm not going to sit here and saying I'm hitting 1, 2, 30 million. you're not gonna hit that high with this build, but you're gonna hit between 800,000 in a dungeon when everybody's vulnerable and you got your potions and you got all your shouts up. You're consistently be hitting between like 800,000 to like 1.2 million, and randomly you'll get like 1.5 million procs out of nowhere per spin, and you're always spinning. Like I'll randomly see like 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1.2 million, 800,000. And obviously you're sometimes going to be hitting for like 400,000, 500,000. It happens, but you're going to see those numbers in the millions when your Berserker's up. So it's super important. Also makes you can't be, it gives you unstoppable, so you can't be CC'd, which is very, very good. You want this to be running. You're generating fury, you're doing more damage, you're unstoppable. It's so good. Now, because going back, another reason why it's so important to have Berserker uptime, because this is such a bleed intensive build. Remember, we're doing 139% bonus damage to bleeding enemies, guys. Right over here, 139% bonus damage. You want to make sure you're hitting that right over here. All right. A big part of this, guys, and I know we talked about it, but I'll say it again because now you're probably starting to connect the dots, is Berserker ripping. When you deal direct damage while berserking, inflict 29% as bleed damage over time. This is why you want berserking to be up and active. Not only are you doing more damage, not only are you generating more fury, not only are you unstoppable, but your bleeding is hitting them harder now. And this is a very bloody build. So you want to make sure your berserker uptime is good and high and consistent. And your shout uptime. When your shouts are up, every time you use Warcry, you're getting 4 seconds of berserking, right? So, and we talked about it. Your Warcry should be constantly up if you have everything in place and you're getting that 18% over here. 18% total shout time reduction, assuming there's 10 enemies around you, which happens very often. So your Berserker uptime is going to be very high because Warcry is going to be up all the time. Now, what else are we doing to keep our Berserking uptime nice and high? I'll let you know, and I'll tell you right over here. Get this, guys. Get this. Blood Rage. Killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to grant Berserking for 5 seconds. Every enemy you kill is bleeding in this build. You're killing hundreds of enemies in the dungeon. I'll always just be berserking, because Blood Rage is always proccing. Because every enemy you kill is technically bleeding, right? Pretty much. There's a 10% chance. So it's always proccing. It's always ticking. You're always just berserking. Without using your ultimate skill, that's going to give you so much berserking uptime, and then Warcry is giving you so much berserking uptime because the cooldown on your shouts is so low because of everything we discussed. And I got this, and I love it. Look at this aspect, the Berserker aspect, I call it. Damaging an enemy with a core skill has a 26% chance to extend the duration of your berserking by 2 seconds. Buddy, you're whirlwinding all day. Every piece of damage you're doing is with your core skill. Get a pen and paper, write this shit down. Now you're starting to connect the dots. Every time you are spinning and you're hitting a character, your duration of your berserking is increased by 2%, 2 seconds. And that doubles. That doubles when it's an elite. Read it. It doubles when it's an elite. There's always elites around. So when you pop all your freaking cooldowns and you're in that pack of all these enemies and you're spinning in there, your berserking uptime, you're always berserking. It's insane. And your damage output is crazy because every time it's active, while Wrath of the Berserker is active, every 50 fury you spend increases berserking damage by 25%. You're going to be generating so much damage because the uptime is so high and you're spending 50 fury like it's your freaking day job. And that 25% compounds. And that's when you start hitting 1 million. When you're spinning for like 4 or 5 seconds, you're hitting like 1 million, 1.3 million. Remember I was talking to you about the high damage? That's when it really starts activating. It's insanity, guys. People tell me, oh yeah, Berserker uptime isn't that important for Barbarian. Get out of here, bro. It's the most important thing if you're running this specific bleed build. I'm not getting against other builds, but for this specific bleed build, berserking uptime is your everything. It's your end all, be all, you name it, dude. What is this guy saying over here? Dude, my bird just freaking attacked me. All right. So now we got this under control. When you're bleeding, when enemies are bleeding, you're getting bleeding damage reduction. You're doing more damage because You're doing more bleeding damage. Your cooldown on your shouts are nice and low, so your fury generation is nice and high because when you're shouting, you're generating fury, plus all these other things we discussed over here. And then you got your critical strike damage, you got your critical strike chance, and you see all the things that play into factor to get that critical strike chance nice and high. I can push my critical strike chance up to 100% if I just change a few things around, but I don't need it. Because 80% critical strike chance and you're spinning so fast, especially if you take a potion that increases your attack speed by 30%, which I do sometimes, so my whirlwind hits even faster, you're always critting. It's very, very good. Anything else I want to touch on over here? No. Let's take a look at your skill tree. Skill tree is always important. Oh yeah, okay, before we get into the skill tree, real quick, I run exploit, all right? I mean, this is very important. I just put this on the first board. The second board I get is Decimator, and I like to put this in here too. Two-handed slashing weapons attacks have an 8% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. This is very important because against bosses, you're spinning so fast on them, it procs a lot. They'll randomly get spells of vulnerability. You'll proc vulnerability on a boss not consistently. I don't want to say, yeah, it is pretty consistently. Like every 10 to 15 seconds, you're getting vulnerable. It's because of Decimator. Because remember, exploit is only the first 3 seconds. And remember, guys, as a barbarian, I guess this applies for any class, you want to use all your shouts. Like say there's a group right here, you want to get nice and close to them so it applies as a nearby enemy. And then you use all your shouts, and then you go in and you hit them. Don't use your shouts as they're hitting you. Because you don't want to take away from your exploit, right? You want here. Jeez, bro. Exploit only lasts for 3 seconds. Okay? So you want to make sure your shouts are up and you're optimized to go in there and do as much damage as possible and mess them up. So you don't want to get in there and start shouting because then that's going to take you a second. You're only going to have maximum damage on them for 2 seconds. So use your shouts. But stay close because when you're close enough, they count. And as soon as they hit you, they're vulnerable for 3 seconds. And all your shouts are up, and then you got 3 seconds of absolute insane damage. And they'll die. And if they don't, just keep running because your bleed will finish them off. And that's what happens. If I don't kill an enemy within the 3 seconds that they're vulnerable, I don't really care. I just keep running forward. I just spin right through them. Like I'm constantly moving forward. As a Whirlwind Barbarian, you just got to keep marching. Never look back. You spin to win. If you're not spinning, you're losing. And when you look back, they're dead because your bleed, your freaking, what did we say, 139% bonus bleeding damage. You're dead. They're done. See you later. Look back and you say see you later. So keep that in mind. Anyway, then I come in here and I get Decimator because I like that 8%. It procs, boys. It says 8%. I think it's higher. It's probably not, but it procs a lot. It feels like it's more. And then over here we get Marshall. Marshall increases your vulnerability damage, and so does Exploit, and etc. And most importantly, Marshall gives you that 1.2% damage your reduction on all of your shouts. And this is a great board to put in the middle, the Decimator board. Put this in the middle because I like to stream left out of this board, and I like to stream right out of this board. The reason is there a mob freaking attacking me? No. The reason I choose this board in the middle is because there's so much value in it. Number 1, Decimator. Number 2, there's a node here in the bottom right. Pillage, 20% increased vulnerable damage. There's a node here on the left, 20% physical damage. Maximum life. And then there's this over here. 20% damage with two-handed slashing weapons. We're using... Guys, 20% additional damage with two-handed slashing weapons and 10% vulnerable damage. Put this board right in the middle. You want everything to be nice and close to this board. So everything activates, all right? Because you got a lot of juicy stuff on here. So anyways, yeah, you come here, you get this, you climb here, you go left, you go right, and I like to travel down here. And it's cozy, it's nice. Over here, I go into Weapon Mastery board because I like to put, and then we put Disembowel here because this board has a lot of willpower on it. So you're surrounding the Disembowel glyph by willpower. Remember, make sure you're putting glyphs on certain boards that have certain amount of, whether it's willpower, strength, intelligence, whatever your class may be. Always keep an eye out on that. That's why I made this little thing here. If you're a barbarian, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot. All right. And then I go into Hunter's Killer. 32% damage to elites, plus 32% damage. Buddy, we take that. And then 14% movement speed after killing an elite. Remember, this is a speed build. It's a speed build. You kill an elite, buddy, you're freaking ripping it, bro. You're ripping it out of there. 32%? Plus 14% movement speed, sorry? Jesus, that stacks on top of everything else. Buddy, you're Usain Bolt up in that fucking dungeon, bro. Then I like to come up here and get Havoc plus 15% critical strike damage, and I get plus 7. You want to get this board, what's it called again? The Flawless Technique. I just come in here and I pick up a few things around this because if I get extra critical strike damage. You don't have to come up here and get this. I just wanted that little extra dexterity because dexterity is crit. And over here, you're just getting a lot of extra critical strike damage. You could even travel up here and get that glyph, which I do plan on doing. But you don't have to. You could get a little creative. I'm not going to tell you how to set up your Paragon board like every other freaking YouTuber. Do it this way. It's the best. I tested it. There are multiple ways to make an efficient Whirlwind Bleed build. This is the way I do it. But if you want that extra crit, definitely come up to the Flawless Technique board because you get some pretty juicy things here around crit. So come here, pick this up, pick that up, pick up Hunter's Killer. Come here, get some juicy crit. If you want to go get that and you feel like you could activate a nice little glyph in there, by all means, man, do what your heart, do what you desire. Then you come in here, I get ire. All right? Oh my gosh, we totally forgot to discuss this. So the ire also increases your damage while you're berserking by 58.1%. Buddy, how did I forget this? Let's add it up. Berserker uptime. Important also because of ire. Guys, I totally forgot to add this in here, man. My bad, but hopefully you're watching this video still. You're doing 58.1% additional damage while berserking. So again, for all those other barbarians, yo, berserker, yo, Lonsdale, berserker uptime ain't so good, man. Don't worry about that. Focus on your crit. Nah, bro, fuck you. To me, it's the most important thing. What the fuck? 58.1% damage, additional damage, on top of all that other shit, on top of this 25% freaking damage that compounds for every 50 fury you spend, on top of this, on top of Berserker ripping, which inflicts 29% bleeding, on top of Berserking making you unstoppable and generating resource regen, on top of it, you're doing 58% more damage. You're telling me it's not important? Like what? Like what, bro? Like what? Like what? Come on, man. It's important because of ire and all that other stuff. There's so much benefit to having Berserker uptime as a barbarian. And these guys are trying to downplay it. Get out of here, man. Anyhow, glad we touched on that. Glad I remembered that. Then you come here and you get Blood Rage. We discussed this. Killing an enemy has a 10% chance to grant you Berserking for 5 seconds because we know how important Berserking is, don't we now? Yo, what the fuck? Like, let me... Thank you. By the way, guys, I also stream. Dude, fuck off! I'm not actually mad. But, like, I'm trying to make a video so these guys could just screw off. I should go back in the city, but whatever, man. It's a cozy little mountain here. Berserker uptime is very important, guys. End of story. Get your Berserker uptime up and keep it up. Then I just work my way down. I pick this up on my way down. Craving, plus 20% damage to bleeding enemies. We know how important that is. Then you come here, and I get this. Wrath. For every 5 dexterity purchased. So Wrath plus 43.1% critical strike damage. And skills that critically strike generate 3 fury. We already know how important this is. We know. Don't let me get into it. We know. Oh yeah, I was saying, guys, I also stream on Twitch, so I think should be up there somewhere. It's Lonsdale the Great. I bring the energy, I bring the vibe, and I bring the freaking Whirlwind Barbarian into town. So just check me out on Twitch, man. It's always a fun time in my stream. 43.1% critical strike damage, plus 43.1% critical strike damage. So Wrath is just, it's super good. And I intentionally put it in the Warbringer board. Why? Because Warbringer board has a lot of dexterity, so I make sure I'm activating it. That's a lot. 43% critical strike damage is huge. And then when your critical strike hits, you're generating 3 fury. That's why fury uptime is so good, on top of your shouts, on top of everything else. I see a lot of barbarians also come down here and pick up Warbringer. Okay, I came here, I picked up Hungering Fury. Gives you a little bit more rage. I'm probably going to keep traveling down here. So over here, it's up to your discretion. You could pick up Warbringer if you want to clear higher tiers. I don't think it's necessary for speed runs. You'll be fine clearing like tier 60s to 70s. I really do think you could do tier 70s with this build because it's pretty tanky. But clearing tier 60s and speed running through them is so fun. It's such a blast, and you don't need Warbringer because you don't need to be tankier. You pick this up if you want to clear higher tiers. So you could come here and you get this if you feel the need to be more tanky. You could also mess around with the glyphs, although I wouldn't change it. Remember, guys, this is not intended to be a tanky build. It is tanky, and it does have a lot of tanky things to it. And one thing that really makes it tanky is honestly this. Your damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy. And then I also have some I put like some fortify stuff on my chest piece. You gain damage reduction. Sorry. Disobedience on my neck and stuff like that. So it does definitely have some tankiness to it. But and then on my helm too, damage oh no, sorry. Yeah. It's got some tankiness to it. This will make you a lot more tankier. There's also a glyph that pairs pretty well with this, but if you do feel like you want to clear higher tiers and you're dying, come here and get Warbringer. It doesn't hurt. You know, for every 75 fury you spend, you gain 12% fortify, which is pretty good. I'm probably gonna come here and get a glyph. I might do like, not sure, maybe might increases your damage while wielding two-handed weapons. That might pair very well with a couple of the other things. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But if you want to just play it safe, come here and get this. If you want to just keep fucking shit up and doing more damage, come here and get a damage glyph. It's up to your discretion. But this build really comes together with Ire. Not a lot of barbarians run Ire. Not a lot of barbarians because for some reason they don't think freaking berserker uptime is important. But I think it's super important. And this build guarantees consistent berserker uptime. And when your berserker is up, remember you're doing more damage and you're doing more bleed damage. So keep it up as much as you can. And you look freaking cool. Your barbarian's on fire, bro. He's on fire. Like what? You're on fire and you're spinning, you're killing. You just look cool, man. You look cool. Yeah, that's that. That's the Paragon board. Get these boards, bro. Plug them in. Do your thing. If you want to make some adjustments and use your creativity, do as you see fit. I'm just giving you a reference to work off of. To my skill tree, I get lunging strike, and then I come here into lunging strike, critical strike. Lunging strike gives you berserking. Again, I'm always seeking the berserking, always. Then you get Whirlwind, obviously enhanced Whirlwind, and then you get into Furious Whirlwind, because again, it's a bleeding build. You want to get that bleeding on the enemies. I like to put 3 points into here. Your core skills have a 30% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. This pairs extremely well with this, that 30% chance. And remember, two-handed slashing weapon attacks have an 8% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds, right? So that's 30% there, 8% here, like, and then you got some lucky hit. It all starts really coming together now. You'll start seeing enemies start getting vulnerable quite often. Rallying Cry, I like to get this. Rallying Cry generates 20 fury. Rallying Cry generates 20 fury and grants you additional 20% resource regen. Just keep that fury up. You cast your shout with echoing band of echoing fury. Everything just pairs very well with that aspect as well. So this is very good. You could go into here if you feel like you want to get more tanky. Like I said, if you want to push higher tiers. I don't even really need this because my fury generation feels so good. And if I want to go start cleaning like tier 70s and beyond, I'll probably go here, right? Because my fury is good. But I keep this here. It's good. It's great for speed runs, man. Why not? And then over here, I also choose this. When Challenging Shout is active, you gain 3 fury every time you take damage. You have the option to do this. Challenging Shout is active, you gain thorns equal to 30% of your maximum life. Actually, no, don't get that. Stick to this. On my War Cry, I like to do this. If at least 6 enemies are nearby you or more, you deal additional damage. So definitely you want to get that. I feel like my damage is a little lower because of the patch that just came out today. So I'm not hitting as hard, but it's fucking still hard. I mean, I did a dungeon earlier. I was still hitting in the million, so it's still fucking hard, guys. This fucking smacks people up. They balance a few things out, though. They brought the damage down, but it still freaking slaps. Where were we? Yeah, so you do this. If 6 enemies are nearby and there's always enemies nearby, you do additional 10% damage. So take it, man. It's juicy. If you want to, again, if you want to get more tanky, You could do this. Might work right, but I like to get booming voice. I like to do this. I like to get aggressive resistance, and I like to get prolific fury. Again, increasing that fury generation. I put 3 points into pit fighter. You're a freaking barbarian, bro. Just the name pit fighter. You're in the freaking pit, boy. You fighting in the pit, boy. You zerking in the pit. What a sick name, pit fighter. Blizzard. Whoever at Blizzard put the name pit fighter for this, just make sure he never leaves the company. Pit fighter, fucking sick name for a skill, dude. You deal 9% increased damage to close enemies and 6% distant reduced damage from distant enemies, which is great. No mercy. We talked about this increased critical strike chance against slowed enemies, and everybody's always slowed because we're putting a point in the hamstring. So your bleeding slows the enemy, so now the count is slowed. So that's really good. It's crowd control, guys. And I like to put 3 points to cut to the bone. And remember, it's a bleeding build. Your bleeding effects deal 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. So for that window where they're vulnerable, it's just doing more damage. And this whole build is a bleeding build. It's the bleeding Whirlwind Barbarian build. It's very, very good. This stuff makes me a little tanky. Each time you take direct damage, you're gaining some fortify. That's why I said there. I didn't put so much tanky stuff in the Paragon board, but as you can see over here, yo, I died. I guess I'm not that tanky. They're hitting me for a little while. That's why I died. I'm very tanky. So over here is kind of what I like to do to get a little more tanky. While fortified, over 50% of your maximum, you deal increased damage. So when you're fortified, you're also doing a little bit more damage. This is just good, man. You get some fortification, you do a little bit more damage while you're fortified. You could get some aspects and stuff that help boost this up as well. But this is great. Remember, this is a speed clearing build. If I wanted to get more tanky, I'd probably put more points into this. I would come here and put a point into this, and I would come over here and put a point into strategic rallying cry. You can make adjustments as you see fit, and I'll change a few things around, right? I come here. Increase your maximum fury by 3. Very important. Just get it. It's great. Feels good. More fury you have, the better. You're never rage starved. You're never rage starved with this build. Heal 9% of your maximum life, for each 100 fury you spent. And 9% of mine is 992 life. So that's good because you're always spending fury because it's such an intense fury generating build. This also makes you more tanky, which is great. We go here. We get all these 3. And then we get Unbridled Rage. Let me show you something cool about Unbridled Rage. If I go here and I hit C and I come here, look at my core damage, all right, guys? Where's my core damage, bro? Oh my gosh. Struggle is real. By the way, I'm going to be making a lot more Barbarian videos. This is just the first of many, so I hope you enjoy. Hit your boy up with a follow. Check me out on Twitch. And where's my core damage? Damage with core, 360%. What's core? Our Whirlwind. Our Whirlwind is our core. You want to make sure your core damage is high as possible. So for me, as a barbarian, I always like to do critical strike chance, critical strike damage, core damage, vulnerable damage. Core to me is very important, all right? 360%. Core vulnerable equally is important, but I know they nerfed like a couple things now, but just get core. Now look at this. Let's just take a look at this mace, guys. Vulnerable, wait, no. The sword. Dude, here. 42% core. So if I take this off, look at my core damage. It dropped to 261%. That's a lot more than 42. Now if I put it back on, look. It went to 360%. This only gave me 42% core damage. Look how much it's jumping. You know why? You know why we're getting so much core damage? I'll show you why. Because of this. Unbridled Rage. Core skills deal 135% increased damage, but cost 100% more fury, which is fine, because we're generating so much fury, because of everything else I explained in this video. My bird's going kind of crazy, because she's hyped. She knows how powerful. This is so powerful. That's why just stack core damage, because this gives you such a boost. Look, if I take this off now, right? It's not selected. Look at my core damage now. Gosh, dude, why do I consistently struggle finding core? Man, I just had it. I passed it. God damn it. Bro, what is wrong with me? Here, damage with core. 96%, dude. Look how much it dropped. That's why stack core damage, yo. Stack core damage. If you're whirlwinding, your whirlwind, look over here. Whirlwind, core skill. Your whirlwind is, and this whole build is whirlwind, dude. Stack core damage, get this, and boost your freaking core damage, dude. 96%. Is that a joke, dude? Is that a freaking joke? 96% to what? Damage with core to 360%? I found it pretty quick that time, yo. Found it pretty quick. To 360%? That's why just get pieces with core damage on them. Like your weapons, always try to seek vulnerable, core, crit. I like to put, like, a lot of people will say don't get ultimate skill damage, but I do because it's, again, the berserker uptime is so important. So just get core, vulnerable, crit, all stat. If you can't find all strat and you get strength, good. But you wanted to get critical strike damage. Obviously, we're doing sword build because swords inherently come with plus critical strike damage on them. Plus, you could get more crit on top. So you're getting so much critical strike with sword. That's why our freaking critical strike damage is super, super high. Remember, guys, our maximum critical strike damage, as we can see here, my base is 338, but it tops up at 453 when everything else is activated. Like, that's huge, bro. 453% crit is huge. And we get up to 80% in critical strike chance. That's huge. Huge, bro. You're just constantly smacking, yo. Smacking. Getting those juicy crits. And when you're spinning for a while, when you're spinning for like 3, 4, when you're spinning for 4 to 5 seconds, all right, because of this, for every 50 free you spend, you're increasing your bonus damage by 25%. After like a couple seconds of spinning, holy crap, man. You are doing so much damage. That's when you start hitting 1 million plus damage per spin. And I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, but Dire of the Whirlwind aspect is how I'm getting 80% crit. But my base is 35. No Mercy gives me 9, but I'm getting 30% from Dire of the Whirlwind aspect, which is this right over here. Critical strike chance increases by 12%, up to 36%. So, and when you're spinning for 3 seconds, sometimes even before I go in, like I'll go here and I'll spin. Look, 1, 2. Oh, frick! Didn't work that time. I ran out of rage. See how it just popped up there? So you want that. You want Dire of the Whirlwind. It came up right over here. You could rewind the video and see it. It pops up. So you want Dire of the Whirlwind. You want to spin for 3 seconds, and then you're getting that 80% damage. And now with the new patch, when you're spinning, like, and you use a shout, it doesn't interrupt your spin. So you make sure this 36% stays up. You could even get a better aspect. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this is not even that high. Like 36% goes up to 48, and there might even be better. That's how you could easily get to 100%. Increased critical strike chance. I'll find that aspect. I think I have it in the bank, actually. I should put it on. It's been lazy. But yeah, so that's why it got so important. Man, I really freaking spent a lot of time playing this shit, man. Not a lot of time. I know Whirlwind pretty well. I like to put 3 points here. Again, this is a speed build. It's a you're ripping through tier 60s. Movement speed increased by 12% on top of everything else. It's really good. It's really good. I like to put this aspect on my boot, right? Ghost Walker. While unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, you gain 16% movement speed increase. So when you're unstoppable over here, right, you could see your movement speed is increased by 30%, but it adds 16% on top of that, right? So you're getting 16% on top of the 30%. So look how fast I run. And then when unstoppable finishes, it's still increased movement speed can move. And for 4 seconds after. So when unstoppable finishes, you still get that 16%. The 30% goes away, but you still have that 16% for an additional 4 seconds. So look how fast I run just from unstoppable. Now remember, if you're doing unstoppable, and then you're coming here and you're killing an enemy, you're killing an elite hunter. No, where is it? Hunter Killer activates, so you're getting 14% on top of that. And then, oh, dude, you're just running so fast. So look, if I just use Wrath of the Berserker and this, look how fast this dude, this dude just rips. And if you kill an elite, man, you're just running even freaking faster. It's like, if you kill an elite, you run even faster, man. You run even faster. Like, it's nuts. It's nuts. Like, for speed clears, this is crazy. You know what else is crazy? How insanely sexy this barbarian looks like. He's the protector of the world, bro. Barbarians are the protectors of the world. Don't play any other class. Just play a barbarian, get the spin to win, get in there, and freaking whirlwind. You're going to have so much fun doing it. But yeah, that's pretty much it from a high level, guys. I don't need to get into like stat priority on your gear and your arm and all that stuff. One thing I'll say is for your rings, try to find rings that have critical strike damage, critical strike damage and critical strike chance. and then vulnerable damage or core damage, and then you want like either fortify or you want either fortify on them or maximum life isn't that good. On your rings, you want resource gen or fortify, and then you definitely want critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and then whether it's vulnerable damage or core damage doesn't really matter. On your weapons, always try to get critical strike damage on all of them. Critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, core damage, strength, or all attributes. Either are very, very good. And get swords for everything. Sword, 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 because swords give you that they inherently have crit, and then you can get additional crit on top of that, which is very good from. And then you got your boots. Just get kind of, this is just such a berserking build. So I got 28% berserking duration. It's great. It's a low roll on the movement speed, but you want movement speed here. You want berserker generate duration uptime. So I'm getting more. And then here you can see ultimate skill damage, an additional 55%. So I'm hitting harder with my berserking, and then I'm getting more uptime, etc., etc. And then over here, remember with the ire, guys, with the ire, that stacks on top of this, man. That 58% damage while berserking, right? And then you got it on your weapon too now. You're doing plus 55% more damage. All your ultimate skills, you're berserking 55% on top of that. Like, you just hit so hard, bro. You hit so hard. It's crazy. Your gloves, you want critical strike chance. A lot of people still run these, but they upgraded now. It explodes every 2 seconds and after it ends. So these are probably worth looking into. But I like to use these gloves, bro, because the problem with this unique Gore's Grip is there's no crit chance on it. There's no critical strike chance. And I think critical strike chance outweighs the aspect or imprint or whatever you want, the special on it. Over here, I'm getting plus 10% critical strike chance. Like, I'll take that, bro. Like, you want to be critting. When you crit, remember, you're generating more fury, you're doing more damage. My crit chance is so high, it's going to outweigh this little explosion that deals 21%, up to 26%. It outweighs it. I think so. I think so. I would rather just get crit chance, personally. Hairgath, let it do its thing. Let it do its thing. On my headpiece, I like to get cooldown reduction. Maximum life is good. Strength, dexterity for extra crit. You can find, there are tankier versions of this, but this is a speed run build, remember. So I'm just getting like strength, dexterity for crit, cooldown reduction, maximum life for a little bit of that armor. On my neck piece, 21% movement speed after killing an elite. This stacks on top of Hunter's Kill. So after I kill an elite, like I'm telling you guys, if you look at my guy, it's Usain Bolt, bro. Like, he is so fast, it ain't even funny, yo. Fury cost reduction. You just want to get like cooldown reduction. This isn't the best neck piece, it's the best I have right now. And then I got the disobedience on it to make me a little tankier on top of everything. So I'm gaining increased armor. This is very good. Always get disobedience. I don't care where you put it. If you're a barbarian, get disobedience. Makes you very tanky. If you're running my build, get this, man. 4% damage reduction for each nearby enemy that's bleeding. These two pair together very, very, very well. Yeah, so Berserker uptime, very, very important. Berserker uptime. It's bleed build. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I'm more than happy to tell. I'm not an expert, but I've just been studying and using this one build, and I've only played Barbarian. I'm not even level 100. I'm a level 99. I'm going to hit level 100 probably in the next hour. But it feels so good. This build feels so good. It's so fun. Spin to win. Bloody Barbarian build. You're going to love it. Try it out. Try it out. Try it out. And just keep that Berserker uptime nice and high. Get that bloody damage in place. Just follow the instructions in this video. I could recreate my Paragon board online and put a link to that if you guys want. I don't know. Drop a comment if you want to see that. I'm happy to go create that for you if it helps. But hopefully this video gives you enough clarity on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much more I gotta say. Shout out to all the barbarians out there. Keep it G, keep it 100, spin to win, don't ever look back. And if you do, your bleed's going to be killing them. Peace out. Check your boy out on Twitch. Drop a follow if you like this video. And if you don't like this video, then screw you. I don't want you to follow. Peace. Let's end this shit.